In the heart of Australia lies a desolate expanse known for its unsettling reputation. This remote region, shrouded in mystery and steeped in eerie tales, has long blurred the lines between reality and the unknown. Are these strange encounters mere superstition, or do they hint at something far more enigmatic hidden within the vastness of the Outback? We have previously dedicated episodes to tales of high strangeness from highways and byways around the world. These stories often involve motorists recounting their encounters with mysterious entities, extraterrestrial beings, and creatures from local folklore. Australia, with its rich and vibrant culture, stands out as a place of peculiar wonders and dark mysteries. When European settlers arrived in the late 1700s, they were both fascinated and terrified by the region's bizarre native animals. Creatures like the kangaroo and the platypus were unlike anything they had seen before. As they began to communicate with the Aboriginal peoples, they learned of even more unsettling beings lurking within the outback. The Aboriginal Australians had long held knowledge of strange and elusive creatures inhabiting their land. Among these was the Bunyi, a formidable creature described as a massive seal dog lurking in waterholes. It was said that the Bunyi had the strength to drag unsuspecting victims into the depths of its watery domain. Another being was the Yowie, a Bigfoot-like creature reputed to reach up to 12 feet tall. Shy, yet occasionally violently aggressive, the Yowie became a subject of fascination and fear. Stories of its presence in the dense forests and remote areas of the outback added to the region's reputation for strangeness. Then there was the Yaram-Yahu, a blood-drinking red frog-like man with suckers on its hands and feet. This nocturnal menace was said to prey on anyone who wandered too close to its territory. The Yaram-Yahu's chilling description made it a figure of nightmares for those who heard its tale. Initially, European settlers dismissed these accounts as mere fiction, dismissing them as part of the local folklore. However, as towns grew and travel through the outback became more frequent, the settlers began to share their own strange experiences. The growing number of these accounts suggested that there might be more truth to the legends than previously thought. Among the strange and unexplained phenomena reported, there were instances that ventured beyond cryptozoology and into the realms of the supernatural and extraterrestrial. The vast and often harsh environment of the outback seemed to play a role in these eerie encounters. In the late 1990s, a retired police constable named Taryn reported an extraordinary encounter while patrolling a remote stretch of Outback Highway on his motorcycle. It was a routine shift until something happened that would challenge his understanding of reality. Midway through his patrol, Taryn stopped to clean the visor of his helmet. The dust from the desert winds necessitated frequent cleaning. As he switched off his engine, he was startled by a deep roaring sound that seemed to come from nearby. Initially, it sounded like a foreign noise, but he soon realized it was the sound of an engine revving as if engaged in a high-speed race. Looking down the highway in both directions, Taryn saw no cars or trucks in sight. His curiosity was piqued by a trail of dust rising from behind a hill. Deciding to investigate, he walked towards the source of the disturbance. Upon reaching the top of the rise, he was confronted by an extraordinary sight. A black 1953 Chevrolet was driving in tight circles at high speeds. The car appeared to be out of control, yet there was no visible driver. Taryn considered the possibility of a mechanical failure or a medical emergency. Perhaps the driver had slumped over with their foot still on the accelerator. Frantically, Taryn attempted to attract the driver's attention. He noticed that there were two occupants inside the car, but neither seemed to acknowledge his presence. Believing that the men might not have seen him, he approached the vehicle. To his shock, the Chevy suddenly changed course and headed directly towards him. The car came to a sudden stop about 30 feet in front of him. The doors on both sides of the vehicle swung open, simultaneously bathing the occupants in sunlight. Taryn felt an immediate chill, a cold shiver running down his spine, despite having no obvious reason to feel threatened. As the sunlight illuminated the figures inside, Taryn was struck by their appearance. Both men were identical in every detail: same height, build, and shoulder-length hair. They wore thick black sunglasses and matching disheveled shirts tucked into mud-stained jeans. The mud-stains and rips in their clothing were identical down to the smallest detail. The most unsettling aspect was their synchronized movement. The two men walked towards Taryn from either side, their steps perfectly in unison. As they approached, their heads turned independently of their bodies, rotating in perfect synchronization. The twisting of their necks in a 360-degree rotation was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Unable to comprehend what he was witnessing, Taryn watched as the men continued their walk, flanking him and moving back towards the main road. Despite his attempts to call out to them, they did not acknowledge him. The sight of their heads twisting in such a grotesque manner left him paralyzed with fear. After the men walked past him, Terran's fear overcame his paralysis. He drew his sidearm and followed them, but when he reached the area where the men had been, he found nothing. There were no footprints, no dust trail, nothing at all. The emptiness of the area was inexplicable given the lack of natural cover. Terran's shock was so profound that he felt physically ill. He stumbled back across the highway to his motorcycle and vomited. When he looked up again, he found himself alone in complete darkness. Hours had passed in what felt like mere moments. Desperate for answers, he hurried to the nearest town. Upon arriving, he found that his colleagues had been sent out to search for him. After he failed to respond to radio messages, Terran spent months searching police reports and intelligence bulletins for any clarification but found nothing. Subsequent searches online also provided no additional information, leaving him with the belief that what he had witnessed was not of this world. Years later, another account emerged from Australia, this time involving a student named David during a nighttime drive from Victoria's southern coast to rural New South Wales. David and a friend faced an unexpected delay that forced them to travel in the dark. The desolation of the A79 highway made the journey eerie and tense. As they drove, their conversation dwindled, leaving them in silence. 2/3 of the way to their destination, David glanced at his watch, noting the remaining time. At that moment, the driver suddenly slammed on the brakes, causing the car to screech to a halt. David was thrown forward, hitting the dashboard. Though David initially thought he had injured himself, he found no sign of injury. Upon checking, he turned to his friend, who was gripping the steering wheel with wide, terrified eyes. Despite David's repeated attempts to get answers, the driver remained silent and unresponsive. Stepping out of the car to inspect the damage, David saw minor impact marks on the bonnet, but no clear cause for the sudden stop. Then he heard a rustling sound from the nearby undergrowth. Following the noise, David's eyes were drawn to a tall, imposing shadow in the brush. The figure was easily 7 feet tall, with a muscular build that suggested a powerful presence. Despite its intimidating size, it appeared trapped in the brush, struggling to make its way back to the road. David's gaze was drawn to the figure's face, or rather its lack of one. The creature's skin was a deep shade of green, and it had no eyes or mouth, only hollow voids and a ragged, featureless mouth. Despite its lack of visible facial features, David felt an intense awareness from the creature. It emitted a low moaning sound as it continued to struggle through the undergrowth. As the creature took a heavy step towards the car, David's paralysis was broken by the frantic screams of his friend. They quickly got back into the vehicle and sped away from the scene. David looked back, seeing the outline of the giant figure fading into the distance, illuminated only by the receding glow of the car's rear lights. The encounter left David deeply unsettled. He later wondered if the faceless creature was connected to unexplained accidents on the A79. The mystery of the creature and its origins haunted him, prompting him to search for similar stories online. In 2008, truck driver Kyle Weston experienced an equally unsettling encounter while transporting a load of fertilizer across the Outback. Traveling along the A87 in the middle of the night, Kyle noticed a distinct red glow in the distance. He initially thought it might be a fire or distress signal, and decided to investigate. Pulling off to the side of the road, Kyle grabbed a torch and ventured into the bushland towards the light source. As he walked, the trees grew denser, and the glow intensified. Suddenly, the red light vanished as if someone had flicked a switch. Alone in the dark, Kyle began to regret his decision. Just as he turned to head back to his truck, the red light reappeared, much closer and blindingly intense. The source of the light seemed to be a figure made entirely of light, with no distinguishing features. The blinding glow forced Kyle to shield his eyes. As the figure drew nearer, Kyle lost his balance and fell. The glowing entity continued to approach, raising a hand in what seemed like a gesture of communication. Terrified and defenseless, Kyle begged the being to leave him alone. To his surprise, the figure stopped and pointed at him, then turned back towards the bush. Kyle watched in awe as the entity passed through a large tree without disturbing its structure. The red glow gradually faded until it was completely gone. Kyle rushed back to his truck and resumed his journey, haunted by the memory of the being made of light. These three accounts: Terran's encounter with the twin men, David's confrontation with the faceless creature, and Kyle's experience with the light entity, highlight a recurring theme of strange occurrences along isolated stretches of road in the Australian outback. Each story reflects the region's reputation for high strangeness. The Outback's vast and often harsh environment might be a contributing factor to these phenomena. Its isolation and remoteness create a sense of vulnerability and mystery. The area's rich history and deep connection to Aboriginal culture suggest that the Outback could be a nexus of high strangeness, a place where the fabric of space and time might be unusually thin despite being inhabited for tens of thousands of years. Australia has only recently been integrated into the global network. The Outback's enigmatic nature and the legends surrounding it continue to inspire both awe and fear. As we delve into the unexplained mysteries of this land, we are reminded of the profound and often unsettling nature of the unknown until the Outback is thoroughly investigated and its mysteries unveiled. Its vast and eerie expanse will remain a source of ominous and foreboding tales. The stories from the Outback remind us of the deep and uncharted territories of our world, where the extraordinary becomes reality and the unexplained remains a captivating enigma.